course, the conflict that's on most of our minds, the appalling conflict in Gaza. Liberal Democrats were the first UK-wide party to call for immediate bilateral ceasefire, so we could get the aid into the Palestinian civilians, we could get the hostages out, and we could get that space for peace. And the need to get that peace process going has never ever been so urgent. I've been really proud of our Foreign Affairs spokesperson, Layla Moran, who's the first ever Member of Parliament with a Palestinian heritage. Her mother was Palestinian. Until very recently, she had members of her family in Gaza. They were Christians, sheltering Palestinian Christians in a church. And they lost one of their members of the family because it was too dangerous to go to hospital to get some treatment. So our Foreign Affairs spokesperson who leads for us on Gaza has been personally deeply affected by this. And she's helped us, I think, get some profile on our position, which I think actually speaks to people, frankly, of all religions. Obviously it speaks to people from the Muslim faith, but it also speaks to people who believe in the rule of law, in internationalism, in humanitarian policies. So we're proud that we've taken the lead on that. We've taken lead on, for example, there being no arms sales to Israel. We actually had that policy before this latest conflict, because we think that arms export licenses shouldn't be granted. Presumption should be against them being granted, particularly if there's human rights problems, and of course there are on the occupied Palestinian territories, as we all know. I recently went on a trip to Israel and the occupied territories, going to East Jerusalem, and what I witnessed was a trauma on both peoples, actually. A trauma on the Israeli peoples, who saw loved ones killed and have had hostages taken from their families on what I consider to be an appalling event on October the 7th. And it's important we remember and are clear about that tragedy and what was deeply wrong. But of course I met Palestinians who are utterly traumatized by what is happening in Gaza. And whether it's the killing of so many people, women, children, innocent people, whether it's frankly the blockade of food and water and medicine, which is unacceptable, it has to stop. And we've been making that argument in Parliament strongly, noting that it has to be with a ceasefire, and we'll continue to do that. And I made that call when I was speaking to Israelis as well as Palestinians on my recent trip. And what was worrying, and many conversations I had, particularly with some of the Palestinian activists in East Jerusalem, was we're seeing the violence, not just in Gaza, we're seeing it in the West Bank. There's been a rise in settler violence, Israeli settler violence against Palestinian communities on the West Bank. And I worry that could be another cause of escalation. People talk about Iran, they talk about Hezbollah and Lebanon. We're worried, we don't want any escalation, but there could be an escalation on the West Bank too. So I called for the UK government to have sanctions on two Israeli government ministers, a guy called Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, who are representatives of these more extreme settlers. And some of their words have frankly been inciting violence, and I think they should be sanctioned by the UK government to send a real signal that that's unacceptable, and to try to be forced to prevent that settler violence and prevent that escalation there. So this is a multi-dimensional issue. It's complicated, but there's one clear thing that needs to be said time and again. We need to get the ceasefire, stop the killing, get around the table, have that peace process. And Liberal Democrats remain committed to that. Let me end by just simply saying, this isn't just one-off thing for us. We have been arguing these principles, international principles, for many years. I go back a very long way, but let me go back to Paddy Ashdown when he was leader of the party, and he spoke up for Muslims in Bosnia-Herzegovina who were being attacked by Serbian Christians. Liberal Democrats don't care what people's religion is. Everyone should live in peace and security and have equal respect and dignity. I go to the Iraq War when Charles Kennedy was leading the Liberal Democrats. We were the party speaking up against the Iraq War. I myself went to Gaza in February 2009 on an all-party trip because the Israelis had bombed Gaza in that December and that January, and I wanted to bear witness to what had happened. And I co-authored a report which called for no armed sales to Israel back then. So the reason I give you that history, whether it's Bosnia-Herzegovina, Iraq, our previous engagements in Gaza, Layla Moran, the first ever MP of Palestinian heritage, I think I want you to know that our values have been consistent over many years. And hopefully they're coming to the fore now. You can see it more with this horrible conflict. And we'll continue to provide that leadership. There is a general election not long away. We want to get rid of the Conservative government. We think they are running our country very badly, and we don't think they've stood up for the right principles. The MP here in Woking abstained on the issue of the ceasefire. He didn't stand up for people here. And Woking is a close fight between the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives. Will Forster could be the next MP for Woking, and it's only the Liberal Democrats who can beat the Conservatives here. And I hope, because of the stance we've taken on these issues, our long-held consistent values, the way we are trying to clear up the mess, even in Woking, thanks to the Tories, because of the way they mismanage things on the Borough Council, I hope we can win the trust of the Muslim community here.